On the 14th day of the Cold War with Damon. It was his birthday. Holding the birthday gift I bought with the money I saved from working part-time for half a year. I rubbed my buttocks that had lost sensation after sitting on a hard seat for 40 hours. From Province A to City B. 2,000 kilometers. I stood under the street lamp beside the playground of B University, and couldn't help but nervously imagined Eamon's reaction when he saw me. It should be the same as before. Expressionless. Nodding at me lightly. He is like this. He seems like an emotionless robot. Recalling the reason for the quarrel, I couldn't help but sigh. In the distant light and shadow, I saw that familiar figure. Just as I was about to go up to meet him, I found that there was someone else beside him. The girl had a high ponytail and was wearing sportswear. She was looking up and chatting and laughing with Damon. And Damon. I seem to have never seen such a relaxed expression on Damon's face. The girl beside him was chirping. He reached out and gently pulled her ponytail. The girl let out a cocoa fist cry and slapped his hand. Not only was he not angry, but he played around with her instead. The street lamp cast a gentle halo on the two of them. The good-looking teenagers and girls were playing and frolicking in the moonlight. It was as beautiful as a scene that would happen in an idol drama. But I didn't have any mood to appreciate it. For no other reason. The reason for our Cold War is related to Damon's personality. A young genius famous in Province A. Admitted to B University at the age of 17. At the age of 20. He has become a rising star in the academic field. Geniuses have their quirks. Damon extremely hates physical contact and has reached a morbid degree. He doesn't participate in any competitive sports and never takes public transportation. In junior high school, because his desk mate jokingly touched his hand, he beat his desk mate until his head was bleeding. And I, as his girlfriend, am no exception. We don't kiss. Or even hold hands. Under the fireworks on our first anniversary, I secretly kissed his side face on tiptoe. His eyes were without waves, but his quick movement of taking half a step back hurt me for a long time. I always comfort myself that Damon is like this by nature. But sometimes, I am also a little unwilling. On Chinese Valentine's Day, my roommate announced her love. The hand-holding photo in the circle of friends received everyone's blessings. I couldn't help but take a screenshot and send it to Damon. Jokingly said that after being in love for 3 years without holding hands, I am probably the only one in the world. He only replied with one word. Oh. I was in a fit of anger and didn't send him a message for 14 days. And he, even less likely to take the initiative to find me. In the end, I still coaxed myself well. As I always did. I came all the way across half of China to find him. But saw such a scene. A huge sense of disconnection hit me. A motorcycle sped past the girl. Damon subconsciously pulled her to his side and held her hand. That obvious protective action made my heart ache again. At the same time, Damon also saw me across the street. He was still expressionless. Just paused for a moment. And then quickly walked towards me. The girl let out an "Oh. Damon, why are you walking so fast all of a sudden?" Damon didn't break free and let her pull. He walked up to me and looked down at me. "Why are you here?" The fragmented light sprinkled in his eyes. Before today. I thought this was his tenderness. I lifted the corners of my mouth and tried to force a smile. I handed the carefully wrapped gift in my hand to him. "Damon, I came to wish you a happy birthday." Just as Damon was about to take my gift, the girl beside him suddenly spoke. "Oh my. Damon. The restaurant we reserved is about to be overdue. There's no time. Let's go quickly." Damon's movement was interrupted. He took a few steps forward following the girl's pull. Suddenly he stopped in place and looked at me behind him. "What are you standing there for? Let's go." My steps were unsteady. I subconsciously followed behind them. I still hadn't recovered. That scene just now kept playing in my mind. I knew that I was redundant following behind them. Sitting in the front of the taxi, I was like a burden. But can I really give up on someone I have liked for so many years so easily? In the back row, The girl was chirping. Damon softly echoed. The atmosphere between the two was harmonious. I couldn't help but recall the details of our getting along. At first, I also liked to share interesting things in life with Damon, even though he never responded. I was still happy to do so. Later, when I was excitedly telling him about the kitten downstairs in the dormitory, he interrupted me. Mia, are you so idle every day? Since then, I have never said a word of nonsense to him again. Naturally, I didn't know that he would listen to other people's nonsense so seriously. I clenched the handle of the gift packaging bag. It hurt my palm. Great fatigue and sadness almost overwhelmed me. The taxi driver noticed my reddened eyes. Said half-jokingly, "Little guy, don't just chat with your girlfriend. Your sister is being neglected by you and is almost crying." The back row fell silent. My vulnerability was exposed. I hurriedly wiped away my tears. An infinite sense of embarrassment and distress welled up in my heart. Soon, the girl chuckled softly. "Sorry, I forgot about you. I am Damon's junior sister Melody. 1 grade younger than him. However, I skipped a grade. Now I am a graduate student under the same mentor as Damon. If nothing unexpected happens, I will also study for a Ph.D. with him." "Who are you? Which school are you from? Which mentor? How many papers have you published? I've never heard Damon mention you." The girl was still smiling. There was ridicule hidden in her smile. "So she is Melody. To tell you the truth, I am not afraid of being laughed at. I often spy on Damon's school forum. Damon is very popular at school. There are often posts about him. He never shares his life with me. I can only understand him in this way." The name Melody is often mentioned together with him. They call them the Golden Boy and Jade Girl of the School of Materials. I have seen their group photo. It seems to be a certain competition. The two stood on the highest podium. They raised the trophy together and smiled freely. I admit that at that moment I was really jealous. The wind outside the window whistled past my ears. Damon was always silent, facing Melody's blatant provocation. He didn't mean to defend me at all. "I am Damon's girlfriend," I said softly. "The restaurant is a private Fujian cuisine restaurant. The numbers on the menu made my legs weak." Melody ordered dishes skillfully. Booted jumps over the wall. White cut chicken. Stuffed tofu. "Let's have these first. Damon likes them." "Does Damon like these?" "I don't know." Before becoming a genius, Damon, like me, was also a child, from an ordinary family. When we dated, it was usually in small shops on the roadside. Occasionally, if we were extravagant, we would eat hot pot. I have never even heard of Fujian cuisine. Melody returned the menu to the waiter. Before the waiter left, Damon stopped him. "Add a plate of spicy chicken." Melody turned her head with a smile and asked Damon, "Damon, don't you never eat spicy food?" Damon took a sip of tea and didn't answer. "Only I know that the person who loves spicy food is not him but me." I wanted to cry again. Damon is always like this. When I was about to give up, he gave me a little hope to keep chasing. Just like after the stolen kiss was avoided that day. He lowered his head and gently kissed my hair. The dishes were delicious, but I found them somewhat tasteless. After taking the train for 40 consecutive hours, to save money, I only ate a pack of biscuits. Under absolute fatigue, people have no appetite instead. Soon it was 12 o'clock. Melody clapped her hands. Several waiters pushed in a huge cake. The cake had 3 layers and was exquisitely decorated. There were different figures standing on each layer. They were wearing lab coats. I guess they were colleagues from their laboratory. On the top layer were small men and women standing shoulder to shoulder and smiling happily. The cake was pushed in front of Damon. Melody spoke. "Damon, happy 20th birthday." She pointed to the small figures on the top and said again, "Also wish you and me to reach the peak hand in hand." An inappropriate blessing. Because of that dish just now. I still had an improper expectation for Damon. Expecting him to refuse this cake. Expecting him to say a few words for me. But he just smiled faintly and thanked Melody. Then, he put his hands together and made a wish devoutly. The candlelight made his usually cold face look soft. The number of smiles on his face tonight was more than I had seen in the past few years. Will his wish be related to me? Or, like Melody, wish that they can reach the peak hand in hand? They are geniuses. I am just an ordinary poor student. The gap between us was so natally and cruelly displayed in front of me. So, I believe it is the latter even more. The candlelight went out. The room was filled with darkness. My feelings for Damon seemed to have dimmed a bit. Melody applauded and cheered. I forced a smile and clapped twice. Melody scooped up a small piece of cake and smeared it on Damon's face. He just smiled and told her not to make trouble. Oh, I actually ruined Damon's so perfect face. To compensate you, I'll give you a big gift. Melody conjured up a big box like magic and opened it in front of Damon. At the moment when I saw the gift clearly, my pupils constricted. Subconsciously pushed the box under my feet under the table. Inside the box lay a new model computer of a certain brand. Exactly the same as what I prepared for Damon. Damon, your computer is old and slow. Here, I'll give you a new one. I didn't buy an expensive one. I was afraid you wouldn't accept it. So I just picked one casually. You won't dislike it, will you? This computer is priced at 12,999 yuan. To buy it. I worked as an institutional teacher for half a year. Every weekend, I have to take it to our bus ride back and forth to go to the other side of the city to teach students. Just because the hourly wage of that institution is 10 yuan higher than that around the school. Something that condensed countless sweats of mine. Something I cherish as a treasure. But it was just a casual pick in Melody's mouth. The hand holding the chopsticks trembled a little. Melody suddenly looked at me and smiled gently. Oh, I haven't seen the gift that sister-in-law gave Damon yet. Saying that, she walked around behind me, taking advantage of my unpreparedness. She directly took the box. I didn't react in time and quickly went to snatch it. The gift box that Melody had just opened halfway fell to the ground like this. The computer that I had carefully protected and held in my arms without letting go was smashed to the ground like this, making a dull sound. Sorry. Melody apologized verbally. But I couldn't detect the slightest hint of remorse. I crouched down and inspected the computer. The body was somewhat deformed. The screen was cracked in several large seams. And there was no response when pressing the power button. Damon squatted down beside me and tried to help me. Mia. Rarely could I detect a trace of guilt in his voice. I raised my hand and pushed him away, numbly putting the computer into the box. Then, I turned and left the box. As soon as I walked out of the box door, I started running. It seemed that Damon just realized what had happened. Mia. I was not as strong as him physically and was pinned against the entrance of the restaurant by him. He was panting, and his slightly cool fingers pressed on my shoulder. I looked up and met his gaze. I could clearly see the astonishment in Damon's eyes. His hand was trembling as he touched my cheek and wiped away a patch of wetness. Only then did I realize that I was crying. So, this is what it feels like to be touched by Damon. There was a bitter taste at the corner of my mouth. Tears flowed into the nape of my neck, making it all wet. Damon couldn't wipe away my tears. Finally, he simply hugged me. Mia, don't cry. Don't cry. He called my name over and over again. His tone panicked. When I was crying, I finally became his exception. But I was no longer the only exception. Perhaps, in places I couldn't see, he had already broken his bottom line for Melody again and again. Damon. After a long time of brewing, when I opened my mouth, I realized that my voice could be so firm. Let's break up. Damon paused for a moment. When he looked up again, there was confusion in his eyes. Is it that serious? Mia? Emotions flowed in his eyes. Finally. He didn't know what he was thinking. He sighed and seemed a little helpless. Mia, do you want me to coax you? Since when have you become so childish? You don't understand the relationship between me and Melody. Don't make trouble without reason. Damon's tone was flat. As if I were an easy math problem. He could get the perfect answer without any effort. Obviously. He thought that with my intelligence, I couldn't understand the twists and turns between him and Melody. There was no need to explain to me. An ordinary person. He thought that I shouldn't be childish and should pretend nothing had happened just like every time before. Like a pet controlled by him. I suddenly wanted to laugh. But tears slid into the corner of my mouth. I raised my hand and originally intended to slap him. But in an instant, I lost all my strength. My fingernails scratched across his face, leaving a shallow blood mark. Damon, what a genius. You are just a conceited idiot. Iman was stunned for a moment and raised his hand to touch his face. Suddenly he said, "Now, are you less angry?" Before I could answer, Melody suddenly ran over. The moment she saw the blood mark on Damon's cheek, her eyes changed suddenly, as if she wanted to devour me alive. She stood in front of Damon to protect him, with a crying voice. "If you have something against me, come at me." Why bully Damon? After yelling at me, it wasn't enough. Melody took 2 steps forward and stretched out her hand to slap my face. I raised my hand to block it. At the moment when my fingertip touched hers, I saw a hint of a triumphant smile in her eyes. Ah! Melody fell to the ground and covered her ankle. But I clearly didn't use much force. Mia. I didn't. Damon and I spoke at the same time. Our voices collided in the air. One was innocent, and the other was full of anger. You should know that our affairs have nothing to do with a third person. You have disappointed me too much. At that moment, the desire to defend myself disappeared completely. I watched Damon pick up the crying Melody and hold her in his arms. Before he turned and left, he took one last look at me. His gaze was cold, like looking at a stranger. He rarely showed his emotions. But now, because of her, he broke his rule again. They were intertwined with each other like 2 vines. I suddenly remembered an incident that happened after the college entrance examination. That time when I went on a trip with Damon. I had a fever of 40 degrees. I begged him to take me to the hospital. After hesitating for a long time, he still called an ambulance. Mia, you can understand me, right? When the ambulance came, there was a traffic jam. By the time I arrived at the hospital, I almost had pneumonia. After my best friend and King learned about this, she angrily scolded Damon as a jerk, saying that he didn't love me at all. At that time, I still defended him, saying that it was his nature and not that he didn't love me. Now, the bullet from that year hit me right between the eyebrows. In the same situation, why did he suddenly forget about the ambulance? I had to admit, he is not incapable of loving someone. It's just that he is too lazy to love me. I booked the earliest ticket back to school the next day. I was in City B, unfamiliar with the place and without much money in my pocket. I could only make do for the night in a corner of the train station. When I returned to school, I fell seriously ill. When I woke up in the hospital ward, and King's eyes were red and swollen like big walnuts. Mia, I've said it long ago. Damon is unreliable. And King has never liked Damon. She scolded me as a love-struck fool and Damon as a macho jerk. If it were in the past, I would have refuted immediately. But now, after so much, I have already lost the capital to refute. I could only nod. And King, if I had listened to you earlier, it would have been better. While talking, the phone rang. This is the exclusive ringtone I set for Damon. On my birthday last year, Damon said he could fulfill any of my wishes. I shamelessly begged him to sing 2 Tigers for me, and I set it as my phone ringtone. He looked at me with a mixture of helplessness and indulgence and smiled. At that time, I really thought that happiness had come into my hands. I thought that Damon would gradually change for me. In the end, we would become the most ordinary and happiest couple among all couples. A bitter smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. And I felt like crying again. I hung up the phone and blacklisted Damon. I clicked on WeChat. There were rarely a few red dots on Damon's profile picture. He asked where I was. He took a picture of Melody with a cast. Because of your willfulness, others have been hurt. Our affairs should not involve her. The previously all-green dialog box now had some white. But it was blaming me for someone else. I couldn't hold back. Tears dropped one by one on the phone screen. I met Damon in junior high school and accompanied each other through our youthful years. For me, he is not just a lover. He is also a goal that I look up to and chase. His clumsy comfort when I failed an exam. His special tutoring for me before the college entrance examination. The genius boy who never did homework copied a whole big notebook of his unique study notes for the ordinary and clumsy me. Holding the notebook, my heart was pounding. I asked casually, Damon, being so attentive, do you like me? Hiding my true feelings with a joke. My voice was trembling. Time passed minute by minute. I didn't know how long it had passed. He suddenly spoke. His voice was flat. Just like usual. As if discussing today's weather. Yes. I like you. I looked up at him in astonishment. The sunset outside the window was brilliant, reddening half of the young man's cheek. At that moment, I thought he was moved by me. I became the genius's girlfriend just like that. The surrounding doubts were like waves. But they didn't shake me. I chased after him for a long way just like that. In half a year, I was promoted from an ordinary second-tier college to a 211 college. And now, I have a chance to get a guaranteed postgraduate recommendation to Damon's school. I gritted my teeth just to be closer to him. It was just a little bit short. Just a little bit and I could reach him. But after so many years of hard work, no one told me that people can change. People can change. The boy who showed his love for me under the fiery sky now likes someone else. My fingers tapped on the keyboard, typing a long passage. Explanations. Accusations. Scolding s. Finally, I deleted every word one by one. It's unnecessary. I thought. Damon. I'll be merciful and give you and your other worldly genius a lesson. Your behavior is called cheating. After sending this sentence, I clicked on his profile picture. By adding to the blacklist, you will no longer receive messages from the other party. My finger hovered over the confirmation button for a long time. Finally, I pressed it down. I lay in King's arms and burst into tears. There was no more news of Damon in my life. Losing love is a long torture, like being cut by a dull knife. When thinking of that person, my heart would suddenly tighten, and it would be very painful. But after a long time, the pain became numb. From beginning to end, I didn't do anything wrong. A person with a clear conscience shouldn't be trapped by the wrong person. I threw myself into my busy studies and forced myself not to think about Damon. But just when I thought I was almost out of the shadow of losing love, we were entangled again in a strange way. I didn't expect that I became popular. The reason was that someone on Damon's school forum was shipping his and Melody's CP. The post was very popular. Most of the comments were like, so sweet. Handsome guy and beautiful girl. Locked forever. But later, there was a comment that was out of place. Did I have an extra memory? Damon seems to have a girlfriend he's been dating for several years. This comment stirred up a huge wave. Impossible. Then isn't Melody a mistress? Don't spread rumors without evidence. Damon has always been alone. Where is there a shadow of a girlfriend? I'm in the same department as Damon. His personality is a bit strange. Anyway, I've only seen him be so close to Melody. Someone posted countless photos of Damon and Melody to prove it. Photos of them on the podium together and participating in campus activities together. They were always shoulder to shoulder and always smiling brightly. That comment about me was quickly deleted. But the heat didn't subside. It was even moved to other platforms. Damon and Melody had the halo of famous schools. Plus, they were also influential figures on campus. So they attracted great attention all at once. There were actually our high school alumni in the comment area who posted a photo of me and Damon, confirming our relationship as a couple. What was Melody then? It was self-evident. A few hours after the incident fermented, Melody posted a long article to clarify that she was not a mistress. Not only that, she also posted 2 photos. One was of her foot in a cast, and the other was a photo of Damon's injured cheek. And she said this: "For a long time, Damon has been unilaterally harassed by this lady. He has expressed his discomfort many times. But this lady not only didn't restrain herself, she even chased after Damon to City B on his birthday. After being rejected, she became furious and injured Damon. She also pushed me, who came to help, resulting in a fracture of my left ankle. Out of the kindness of knowing each other for a long time, Damon chose not to pursue it. But we also don't want kindness to be exchanged for malicious slander. Ms. Mia, I hope you will take care of yourself. In the right and wrong of the internet, no one has the energy to explore the truth." This upside-down statement directly pushed the incident to a climax. Melody directly made my name public, coupled with the fact that someone had posted my photo in the comments section before. Netizens followed the clues and directly dug out all my personal information. I rushed into the school forum and angrily called me a psychopath, saying that ugly people make more trouble, and I am a cockroach who can't bear to see others happy. The teacher from the academic affairs office found me and gently reminded me, saying that what I did had brought too many negative impacts to the school. "Classmate Mia, the school has no intention of interfering in your personal life. However, if this continues, I'm afraid your chance for an exchange program abroad." The school has always had an exchange program abroad. The teachers who are familiar with me have several times suggested that I give it a try. But at that time, I was only focused on getting into the graduate school of Damon University. I was extremely busy for grades and credits. Plus, I didn't want to have a long-distance relationship with Damon, so I rejected the teacher's suggestion. On the day I came back with my broken computer, I suddenly figured it out. 2 hours before the system closed, I submitted an exchange application with my grades. It should have been a sure thing, but who would have thought that such a thing would happen? The interface on the teacher's phone screen from the Academic Affairs Office stayed on Melody's homepage. She updated again. In the photo, she had an IV in her hand, accidentally captured a slender hand beside her making medicine. The caption, "With you here. No matter how bitter the medicine is, I'm not afraid." The atmosphere in the comments section was harmonious. Everyone was wishing her and the gentleman in the photo a long and happy relationship. There were also people who subtly taunted me a few times. This is the treatment of the legitimate wife. I'm afraid someone will be so jealous that they'll jump in anger when they see this. When I was sick, Damon would only tell me to drink more hot water. I moved my gaze away from the interface and took out my phone, clicked into the drafts, found the evidence that I had sorted out after staying up for 3 nights. Bit by bit inside, it was proof of the happiness I and Damon had had. I had originally planned to show it to the world at our wedding. Now it has become my life-saving charm. I gently clicked the send button. Teacher, you can rest assured. Not long after sending the evidence, I received a call from a high school classmate whom I hadn't seen for a long time. As I picked up the phone, Damon's voice came from the other end. His voice was tired. "Have you made enough trouble, Mia? Delete the things." I was so angry that I laughed sarcastically. Because Melody lied. I was cyber-bullied for several days in a row. When I went to eat in the cafeteria, there were people who gave me dirty looks. Because Melody lied. I was almost dealt with by the school and lost my chance to go abroad. But you are blaming me. Damon, you and Melody are indeed a perfect match. You are equally shameless. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. You are going abroad? Why didn't I know? I sneered. Damon. Don't forget. We have already broken up. Damon let out a long sigh. Mia, we haven't broken up. There are so many things you don't understand. I will explain them to you slowly later. Delete the things first. Melody is in a very bad state now. Even though I had already been completely disappointed in Damon. At this moment, I still couldn't help feeling a chill in my heart. Up to now, he was still thinking of perfunctorily dealing with me. All the pain I had experienced was insignificant in his eyes. The rumors about me had been fermenting on the internet for 3 days. But he didn't say a word. But because Melody was in a bad state, he took the initiative to lower his head and make peace. So he does surf the internet. I couldn't help but curse and hung up the phone. After sitting on the chair and calming down for a while, I directly dialed the police number. Didn't he say that Melody was in a bad state? Then I added fuel to the fire, and let her taste what it's like to be sued. Melody's behavior already belonged to slander. Under the pressure of the internet and the police, Melody deleted the slanderous content. However, the internet has a memory. Screenshots of her posts and photos of showing affection were flying all over the internet. The popularity was even greater than mine at that time. Melody's school also issued a statement saying that it would deal with it seriously. Just when I thought everything was getting better, and was concentrating on preparing to go abroad. But I received a bad news. My quota was cancelled. I asked again and again for the reason. But all I got was a perfunctory sentence from the teacher. This is a school arrangement. We didn't want this to happen either. It's very late. Go quickly. We are about to get off work. The door of the academic affairs office slammed shut. It was already late autumn. There was a fine and dense rain floating in the sky, adding a touch of coolness. I looked up. Under the street lamp, in the rain curtain, a long-lost figure was standing there. Damon. Bad luck. I was about to pretend not to see him and turn around to leave. But he firmly grabbed my wrist. The chilling cold made me shiver all over. Mia. I shook off his hand. Go away. He looked behind me and suddenly said, if you withdraw the lawsuit now, maybe there is still a chance. I froze in place. Half a month ago, I filed a private prosecution in court. I sued Melody. The other party proposed a private settlement. But I didn't agree. In a flash, I seemed to understand something. Melody's doing? Damon just said. I advised you long ago. If you withdraw the lawsuit, I will help you plead with the teacher. I sneered and laughed. If you plead, aren't you afraid that Melody will be unhappy? It's better to demolish a temple than break up a marriage. I can't bear to let you two fated lovers turn against each other. Damon shook his head. His expression conflicted. No, I won't have anything with Melody. Will you be obedient? Be obedient? I couldn't help trembling all over. I raised my hand. The slap that should have fallen long ago ended hard on Damon's face. Damon, liking you is the most regretful thing I have ever done in my life. His head turned to one side and didn't turn back for a long time. Damon will never understand that what I like is not a genius. The moment I truly fell in love with him was perhaps because he protected the bullied little girl in the alley. Or perhaps it was because he bought all the things from the grandma who was selling things on a rainy night. That was the Damon I knew. Although he seemed a bit cold, he was actually full of a sense of justice. As the saying goes, people change. The once noble and upright young man who would never be contaminated by others is now completely rotten. Withdrawing the lawsuit is absolutely impossible. Just come and deal with me. I believe that truth is eternal. Don't come to me again. Damon. It's not only you who have. I also find men who have been touched by others dirty. Damon came up to pull me again. He seemed to realize something. His voice was sharp and urgent. Mia. I lifted my leg and gave a hard kick. A leather shoes hit him, making a dull sound. I heard him groan in pain but still didn't let go. Damon. Don't make me disgusted with you. The man behind me was silent. Finally, gently, little by little, he let go of my hand. I didn't look back and ran into the rain. I will never tell Damon that the day before he came to find me, I received a private message. The person claimed to be a senior fellow student in the same laboratory as Damon. He asked me if I knew why Damon cared so much about Melody. I didn't plan to reply at first, but he sent several paragraphs on his own. Check who Melody's father is. You will be surprised. Who doesn't want a good father-in-law and a good future? If I were favored by Melody, maybe I could also publish papers easily. You should have never experienced the feeling of having something you prepared hard being snatched away by others. Right? I have experienced it many times. We are all victims. At that time, I didn't want to believe it because I thought that at least Damon's academic ability was credible. After all, he is a genius. But there was still some vague doubt in my heart. I checked Damon's advisor. He is also surnamed C. The man in the photo was wearing gold-rimmed glasses and smiling elegantly and casually. On that face, one could see Melody's shadow. When I saw Damon at the door, I opened my phone recorder by a strange impulse. Now, this recording is quietly lying in my phone. On the screen, Iman senior fellow student sent me a new message again. He was sitting on the rooftop. Under his feet was a bottomless abyss. He won't let me graduate. I don't want to live anymore. My fingers moved slightly. This time, I replied to him. If you die, there will be nothing left. We are indeed victims. But who said that victims can only wait passively? I contacted Damon's senior fellow student Graham. Fortunately, he had a lot of evidence in his hands. My account had attracted a lot of attention because of the battle of the century with Melody before. For the sake of traffic. After we sorted out the evidence, we posted it on my account together with the recording. A doctoral student from a top university is oppressed by a supervisor. Academic tyrants and powerful people persecute innocent girls. Any topic can instantly explode the internet. Damon's school quickly responded and suspended all the work of Melody's father. On that day, Damon went crazy and contacted me. On the other end of the phone, he was hoarse. Mia, how dare you? How dare you? I smiled lightly. On the day of the court session, it was a cloudless day. The court found Melody guilty of slander and was sentenced to 1 year in prison. Suspended for 2 years. She broke down and cried in court. I don't know if she ever regretted for a moment that she had caused such a situation for a man. On the same day, the school's handling result of Melody's father was also announced. He was dismissed from all his positions and his teaching qualification was revoked. All the students in his laboratory were transferred to other advisors. Except for Damon. After investigation, among the 7 papers he published, only 3 were personally participated in research by him, clinging to melodies that had brought him many benefits. After the incident was exposed, the whole school was in an uproar. The campus male god became a thief that everyone shouted to beat. The once talented young man finally fell into the quagmire. After Damon dropped out of school, no one had seen him again. Some said he went to work behind the scenes in a large enterprise. Some said he returned to his small hometown city to deliver food. No one can tell which is true and which is false. Not long after, my exchange quota was restored. When passing through security inspection, I looked back. In the crowd, a familiar figure seemed to flash by. I didn't look back again and didn't wonder who it was anymore. This time, what I am going to pursue is a future earned by myself. Damn it. Mia, are you really going to get married? With that useless senior back then? Graham, sitting in the driver's seat, twitched the corner of his mouth. I laughed loudly and explained to King on the other end of the phone. What useless senior? He has a name. Graham from Zhongzhou Technology. It should have a result after so many years. I'm not lying to you. Come and be my bridesmaid. After I went abroad, I was unfamiliar with the place. Graham helped me a lot. After coming and going, we got familiar. A year later, Graham successfully graduated with a Ph.D. That night, the man over 1 meter 8 cried loudly like a child. He said that I was his savior. A god who gave him a second life. Of course. If the god is willing to fall in love with him, he will be even more grateful. I agreed to his confession. Not only because of his touching words, but also because he is an upright, kind, and down-to-earth person. After falling in love, our relationship has always been very stable. At the end of the exchange period, I stayed in country M to continue my postgraduate studies. Graham chose to start a business and founded Jiangsu Technology with several senior fellow students. 2 more years passed. I ended my student life and planned to return to China for development. Graham's Jiangsu Technology also showed some progress. This time, I came back to prepare for the wedding. On the other end of the phone, Anne King was still sighing about the unpredictability of life. She was silent for a moment and then said, "Do you know? Iman is also getting married." I softly said, "Oh." There was really no fluctuation in my heart. But Graham was a little anxious. He grabbed the phone, said goodbye to Anne King in a hurry, and then hung up directly. "Dear, we still have to go to several stores to try on wedding dresses. We need to be quick, or we won't make it." I didn't expose his attempt to change the topic. I just smiled gently. "Okay. I'll listen to you." Vividay is a world-renowned wedding dress brand. Half a year ago, when I saw that masterpiece that was said to have cost the chief designer his whole life's efforts in a magazine, I fell in love at first sight. This time, I came specially to try it on. Graham and I had made an appointment long ago. But when we arrived at the door of the wedding dress store, we were stopped. The clerk was full of hesitation. "Could you two please wait for a while? There is some situation inside now." Although she said it vaguely, I could still understand some from the quarrel coming from inside the store. "Isn't it just a broke-in wedding dress? Can't I try it on?" "Snobbish things." The woman's voice was hoarse. The clerk explained softly, "Madame, this wedding dress has been reserved by a customer." "Damn it. Bitch." Looking down on me, "Madam, if you continue to make trouble, we can only call the security guards." I always felt this voice was somewhat familiar. In the next second, the security guards escorted the swearing woman out. Only then did I see that face clearly. Melody. When she saw me, the curse in her mouth stopped and she was also stunned. After a long time no see, she was much thinner and darker. She was far from the youthful and arrogant look in my memory. If she is here, then the other person inside is. A tall figure walked out of the store. Who else could it be but Damon? He was a bit fatter, wearing clothes that didn't fit well. His eyes were full of exhaustion, no longer like the high-spirited young man he used to be. At the moment we looked at each other, he subconsciously took a step back. The clerk came over with a smile and kept apologizing. "Sorry, Ms. Lee, we've kept you waiting. The wedding dress you reserved is inside. This way, please." I nodded. I didn't give those two people even half a glance anymore. I pulled Graham and walked inside. As expected of Vividay's main style. At the moment I stood in front of the mirror, my breathing almost stopped. I rarely use the words resplendent to describe a piece of clothing, but it really has a breathtaking beauty. Clang! The cup in Graham's hand fell to the ground. His mouth was slightly open. I smiled and patted his hand. "Are you stunned?" "Yes." Stunned. Graham's eyes were actually a little red. "This one. What did I do to deserve to marry a wife like you?" "Hey." He is exaggerating again. Who said that science and engineering men don't understand romance? Before I could say anything, I was interrupted by a roar from outside. "Dumb on. Are you trying to die? Do you still like her? Look at yourself now. Who else would want you except me? Does she still look up to you now? You must be with me. You have to be with me even if you die. This is what you owe our family." Melody was like crazy. While crying, she punched Damon. But Damon was unmoved. His eyes were fixed on the direction of me and Graham. Graham curled his lips and stood in front of me. I turned to look at the clerk beside me. In this situation, doesn't your store deal with it? The clerk seemed to wake up from a dream and quickly called the security guards. The security guards reached out to pull Melody, but Melody rolled on the ground and made a scene. In a short while, many onlookers gathered around. With an audience, Melody became even more outrageous and cried to Damon. Graham and I folded our arms and watched this big show quietly. Damon finally couldn't stand it anymore. Can you stop making trouble? He kicked away Melody's hand that was pulling his pants leg. Crossing the crowd, he walked out with his head down. Melody was stunned and stared at her own hand. There was no more excitement to watch. The crowd dispersed. Only Melody was left sitting on the floor at the door of the store alone. At that moment, did she regret choosing Damon? I don't know. I only know that people have to be responsible for their choices. I squeezed Graham's hand. This hand was warm and broad. We supported each other and walked through a long time. There is no one looking up to the other. There is no one chasing the other. Perhaps the love that suits me should be like this. Okay. This one. Let's go home. You makes Paribus for me. Graham held my hand. His tone was gentle. Okay.